I'm Dr. Lara, and if you've ever felt out of control around food, then this is for you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how binging has absolutely nothing to do with willpower and how one simple shift changed everything for me and my clients. I know you're here for a reason. I bet you would love to be able to eat just 1 or 2 cookies and then get on with your day without spiraling and binging the whole packet and feeling totally guilty afterwards. Or maybe you'd love to be able to sit down for dinner feeling calm and present with none of that food noise buzzing around your head, not counting calories or wondering if you're going to spiral into a binge afterwards. And I bet you're someone who does eat healthily all day, but when you get to the evening, something just snaps. You find yourself in front of the fridge, grazing, unable to stop. And maybe you're also someone who has eaten in secret. I know this because I have, hiding wrappers in the bottom of the bin, worrying that someone else might find them. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact 3-part framework that I use to end eating chaos. And it's based on one simple insight, that you can't fix the holistic system by just focusing on the symptoms alone. It's called the food and body freedom method. For over 20 years, I had an extremely complicated relationship with food. On the surface, I was a high achiever. I had got my PhD in psychology. I was building a career and a family, but behind the scene, food ruled every single part of my life. I spent years, and I'm not joking, years, swinging between strict diets, detoxes, healthy eating plans on the one hand, to binging, overeating, emotional eating, and feeling totally out of control on the other. And I remember my rock bottom moment really well, just like it was yesterday. I'd had another binge and I was sitting on the floor surrounded by wrappers, just thinking, oh my God, how did I get here again? Because just that morning I'd promised myself yet again I was going to be good. I'd skipped breakfast, I'd had a light lunch, and was actually feeling quite proud of myself. But on my way home from work, this urge just took over me. I walked into the corner shop, grabbed everything I could see, pastries, ice cream, chocolate. It was like I was on autopilot. And it was at this point that I felt totally broken. I don't know if you've ever felt like that as well, but it's just this feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. And it was at that moment that I realized that the problem couldn't be me. It must be the approach that I was taking, because after all, I had literally followed all the advice out there to help me stop binging and overeating, and nothing was working. And this is what I learned that day. Trying to fix binge eating, overeating, emotional eating by just focusing on food is like trying to fix a wobbly 3-legged stool by just fixing one of the legs. It's always going to collapse, isn't it? Your relationship with food rests on 3 core pillars. Number 1 is your biology, and that's food and nutrition. Number 2 is your psychology, mindset and beliefs. And number 3 is your emotions, that's stress, coping and nervous system regulation. You see, most programs out there try to fix the problem by just focusing on one of these pillars. A nutritionist might give you a meal plan, focusing on the biology. A therapist might help you deal with old trauma, just focusing on the emotions. A coach might give you mindset hacks, just focusing on the psychology. But if you only work on them in isolation, that's never going to heal your relationship with food for good. And that's why all your past efforts haven't worked. They might work in the short term, but not in the long term. It's not because you failed, it's because the approach that you took was incomplete. That's why I created the food and body freedom method. Instead of treating just the symptoms, we fix the underlying whole system. I want to explain the food and body freedom method so you understand exactly how it works. There are these 3 core pillars. Pillar 1 is your biological reset, your biological foundation. I really had to learn this the hard way because for years I was skipping meals, I was restricting, thinking that I was being good, but my body was in this constant state of deprivation. When you do this, your brain literally thinks that there's a famine. And what I felt was a lack of willpower was actually my body fighting to survive. It's well known that when we restrict, we're actually 12 times more likely to binge. So the very first thing I had to do for myself was focus on that biological foundation. This is called nutritional rehabilitation, where I learned to regulate my appetite, stabilize blood sugar levels and hunger hormones so that my brain could feel safe again. And amazingly, when you do this, the primal urge to binge or overeat, that starts to fade. My client Shanaz experienced exactly the same thing. After 40 years of trying trying to fix her binge eating by going on constant diet, her body was in this state of alarm. So what we did for the first few weeks is just to focus on that biological foundation. Once she'd stabilized her blood sugar levels and learnt to regulate her appetite, her body no longer thought that it was in this state of famine, and the food noise started to disappear. She was finally able to stop binging and eat in a balanced, nourished way. And that was literally after struggling with her relationship with food for 40 years. Pillar number 2 focuses on your psychology. This is your mental reset. Once my body was feeling calmer, having worked on that biological foundation, I finally was able to see the mental trap that I was stuck in. Research shows that when you are chronically restricting food, dieting, constantly going on these healthy eating plans, you actually spend more time thinking about food. And that inner dialogue is relentless. I had so many rules about good versus bad food, the time of day I could eat, what I should and shouldn't be doing. And if I ate bad food, then I would feel really guilty. Immediately I would think, oh, sod it. I've ruined my plan for now. I may as well eat the whole packet. And that would trigger this massive binge. So I had to work on consciously dismantling those food rules. I had to unlearn decades of diet culture conditioning and challenge that all or nothing thinking. It was only when I could stop moralizing food that I was able to stop that spiral. And this is a core part of the food and body freedom method. And it was key for my client Georgia. Her trigger was always that all or nothing thinking. She'd have one biscuit and then spiral into a binge. We worked specifically on rewiring that cognitive distortion, and now she can eat cookies and her brain no longer spirals. But crucially, she can eat that cookie and then just get on with her day. Pillar number 3 is emotional coping. And this pillar is all about building your emotional coping toolkit, focusing on your emotions and nervous system regulation. Food is often used as a coping mechanism for stress, boredom, or when you feel a bit frazzled. For so many people, turning to food is the main thing they do to help soothe their emotions or their nervous system, and that was absolutely what I used to do. So I had to build a new toolkit of ways to process my emotions that didn't involve turning to food. And this was the missing piece for Steph. She spent a lot of her time coping with emotions by turning to food, and a specific family member was a huge trigger for that. We identified what was happening in her nervous system and gave her a couple of very simple nervous system reset tools that she could use literally anywhere. And recently she navigated a really stressful visit from that family member, and for the first time didn't turn to food in order to cope. She felt the emotion, used that tool to process it, and then moved on. Here's why the food and body freedom method is actually a much simpler method than what you've been using in the past. Before, you were probably juggling a dozen different conflicting rules. It's exhausting, and the more we seek to try and control things, control the food, create rules about eating, the less safe our body feels and the more out of control we feel. You think control is going to bring more calm, but it actually brings more chaos. Now, with this integrated approach, the food and body freedom method, everything works together. When you nourish your body, i.e. focusing on the biology, your binge urges or your urges to overeat, they decrease. Then when the urges decrease, it's much easier to focus on your mindset and your beliefs, your psychology. And then when your thoughts are clearer, you can consciously choose to create more coping mechanism, i.e. focusing on the emotions and nervous system regulation. This is exactly why it makes so much more sense to work on all of these things together. In terms of actually applying this in practice, now you understand how these 3 pillars work together. The next most powerful thing you can do is actually identify which of the pillars is most out of balance for you. I've created this short and free assessment tool. It's literally 2 minutes that helps you understand whether your biggest challenge now is biological, psychological, or emotional. And it's designed to give you clarity on where to focus first. Every single client that has worked with me using the food and body freedom method has silenced the food noise, they stopped binging and overeating, and they've totally healed their relationship with food and body image. Because because they finally have a system that supports them. And if you want to complete that self-assessment too, just send me a direct message on Instagram using the word quiz and I'll send it right over. My Instagram handle is on the screen and also in the description below. The key to this is to find your unique imbalance and then start building a system that actually supports you, not one that fights against you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the DMs.